Okay, I'm having focusing issues for some reason. There we go. Okay, so you wanted a little video on the special right triangles, namely the 45, 45, 90 and the 30, 60, 90. So, I labeled, this is an isosceles right triangle because the legs are congruent, because this triangle is isosceles. I know that the base angles are congruent, and I know for sure that those angles are 45 degrees each, right? Okay, so I labeled the legs x because we know that the hypotenuse is equal to the square root of 2 times a leg, and the leg is x, right? So in this case here, if my legs are x, then the square root of 2 times x gives me the length of the hypotenuse. So hypotenuse equals the square root of 2 times a leg. In this case, the leg is x, and that's the formula you need to remember. So let's suppose we have a 45, 45 right triangle, and the leg is 3 root 2. And we want to find this up here, this hypotenuse. So we say the hypotenuse is equal to the square root of 2 times a leg. Okay? And when you multiply root 2 times root 2, you get 2. So you get 2 times the 3, don't forget the 3, which is 6. So the length of the hypotenuse is 6. And you can always check using the Pythagorean Theorem. You could say 3 root 2 squared plus 3 root 2 squared. Does that equal x squared, the hypotenuse in this case? Right, so the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, or leg squared plus leg squared is equal to hypotenuse squared. Well, if I square the 3, I get a 9, times if I square the 2, I get a 2. I'm going to get the same thing here. Question is that equal to x squared? 18 plus 18 is 36. And now, to get rid of this square, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Well, x is equal to the square root of 36, which is 6. So it's the same exact length that I got there. Okay, but the idea is you want to be efficient in using this little equation up here. If you're given the hypotenuse, so let me make up another one here. I don't know, let's just say the hypotenuse is 8. And you're asked to find a leg. Well, again, using the little formula, I know that the hypotenuse is equal to the square root of 2 times a leg. So then I'm going to solve for x by dividing both sides by the square root of 2. So I get 8 over root 2 is equal to x. And I'm just going to flip this, okay? So x is equal to 8 over root 2. And then I need to multiply up and down by the thing I want to get rid of in the denominator, which is root 2. 8 times root 2 is 8 root 2. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. And then we can reduce the numbers on the outside of the radical. 2 goes into 8 4 times, so the leg is 4 root 2. Capiche? Now let's look at a 30, 60, 90. Oops, not here. There we go. Okay, remember that in a 30, 60, 90, the short leg is always opposite the 30-degree angle. So this is my short leg. I'm going to call it x. The long leg, which I'm going to call y, is always opposite the 60-degree angle. And then our hypotenuse, which I'm going to call z, is always opposite the 90-degree angle, right? And from the formulas we learned in class, we know that the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the shorter leg. And we also know that the longer leg, which is y, is equal to the shorter leg times the square root of 3, or the square root of 3 times the shorter leg. Okay, so you need to memorize and know how to use these two formulas. So let's look at an example. So this is 30, this is 60. And you know, maybe I'm going to use 8 again like I did in the last example. Now with the the 30, 60, 90 right triangle, the sides are not congruent. Ergo, the base angles are not congruent. But if I need to find the shorter leg and the longer leg, I can't find the longer leg until I find the shorter leg, because this depends on the short leg. So I know that the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg. If I divide both sides by 2, I get that the short leg is equal to 4. Well, if I know what the short leg is, and I know that the short leg times the square root of 3 gives me the long leg, then I know that the longer leg is 4 root 3. Let's do another one. Oops. So how about okay, so here's the 30, here's the 60. And by the way, you know, it doesn't have to look like this. You're going to see them like this, right? So this would be 30 and this would be 60 and that would be 90. They can spin them all different ways to try and, you know, confuse you. But anyway, suppose they give me the long leg here is 20. And I have to find the short leg and the hypotenuse. Again, I know that the longer leg is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3, right? So I can divide both sides by the square root of 3 to get x by itself. So when I do that, I'm going to have x is equal to 20 over root 3. Now we can't have a radical in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply up and down by root 3. And we know that 20 times root 3 is just 20 root 3, and root 3 times root 3 is 3. I can't simplify this anymore. 3 does not divide evenly into 20, so I leave it alone. That's my answer. So I found the short leg, and to find the hypotenuse, I know that the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg. So here's my short leg, and here's 2 times that for my hypotenuse. And again, remember, I'm just going to multiply this number out here. You can think of this as 2 over 1. 2 times 20 is 40 times root 3 all over 3. And again, 3 does not divide evenly into 40, so you would just leave it like that. If I'm given the short leg as root 6, let's say, and I'm asked to find the long leg and the hypotenuse. Okay, well, I know that the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the shorter leg, so I'm done, because I know what the short leg is. I also know that the long leg is the short leg times the square root of 3. Now, we've got to be careful here. When you multiply radicals, as long as they're the same index, and they are, they're both square roots, and you can multiply the stuff inside. So 6 times 3 is the square root of 18. That can be written as the square root of 9 times 2, right? 18 is 9 times 2. 9's a perfect square. So that means I can put them in their own little radicals here. And we know the square root of 9 is 3, and I just multiply it to the root 2. So there's your answer. Okay, so a little bit of work on this one, but not too bad. So anyway, I did a whole bunch of examples in class. I hope that you wrote those down, because I'm going to be looking for those in your notebook when I check it on Tuesday, the day of the test. So I hope this helps, and study well this weekend, okay? Have a good night. Bye.